bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, everyone. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, June 21st. 173 days into the new year, 193 days left. We are live from a bunker in downtown Burbank, California. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Yeah. I tried to be first in the chat rooms. I didn't pull that off, but I did say good evening to everybody. How you doing? Got Twitter in there. Okay, so tonight, right before the show, I said, everybody go and put on your Fade to Black shirts. Take a picture, post it in Twitter, at JChurchRadio, hashtag F2B, and I'll retweet everybody. Tara's looking good in her new shirt. She couldn't wait to post. Les, Bob got in. Let's do this. Take a picture. Oh, look at this. Here's Allison. The pictures are flooding in. Take a picture. Look at Allison. She's got her crew shirt on. I do need glasses, by the way. And that's interesting. Welcome, everybody. Fade to Black. Tonight we have a very special guest with us, William Henry, and he's here to talk about the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. It is going to be an amazing conversation. I cannot wait to get William in here. Tomorrow night, Nick Redfern's going to be here. We're going to talk about women in black. Thursday night, very special presentation with the director of the Zeitgeist films, Peter Joseph. And John Rappaport. So before everybody freaks out, what about John? John's going to be here. John will be here with his No More Fake Newsroom. All right, the call-in number tonight, as in every night, dazed and amused. No, it's supposed to be Fade to Black shirts. There we go. Look at these. And you guys are nuts. Yeah, keep posting. I will continue to retweet everybody that post. Okay. Follow us on Twitter if you want to see all of the Fadernauts in their shirts. Man, okay. Now people are posting twice. I'll retweet everybody. Oh, there we go. Fade to Black crew. Oh, that's 2 years old right there with the old style crew shirts. Fade to Black crew shirts. Okay, hashtag F2B is the sandbox. And everybody's posting pictures of themselves in Fade to Black shirts. At JChurch Radio's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you know what to do. You can also email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. And if you have any questions or comments during the show for myself or William Henry, use the hashtag F2BQ. Be sure to check out all of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, support the show. And you support the show by supporting yourself and supporting the sponsors. It's that simple. Life Change Tea, their banner is over at Jimmy Church Radio. The company is getthetea.com. Just go use the promo code Jimmy. And then also Studio Dome, their banners are over at Jimmy Church Radio. Go and click, use the promo code JCRTWS. Upon checkout, 60% off your order there and free shipping. And promo code Jimmy over at Get the Tea will get you free shipping as well. Great products, the best. Roswell Festival's coming up. We fly out of town next week. Cannot wait. We look forward to seeing everybody there. We'll be broadcasting Friday night from the Roswell Museum from 8 till 11 p.m. And there you go. That is free to the public, by the way. And that will be Friday night, July. Is that July 1st? I think that's Friday, July 1st. The festival itself is June 30th through July 3rd. And then the Awareness Life Expo is right after that at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Sacramento, California. And that's August 12th, 13th, and 14th. Richard Dolan, Laurie McDonald, Victor Camacho, Patty Greer, Holly Cook, Len Kasten. Look forward to seeing everybody there. We will be broadcasting as well. That is from the VIP Mixer on Friday night. And all of your tickets and info are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click and go and do it. All right, let's get this show cracking. Today, the lead singer of The Killers, one of my favorite bands, Brandon Flowers, today is 35. What I like about The Killers, it's real rock and roll, real guitars, killer vocals. Love The Killers. They're out of Las Vegas, right? I believe so. Juliette Lewis today is 43. And Edward Snowden today is 33. All right. Our dead guy's birthday today is Jane Russell. 1921 to 2011. Died at the age of 89. Star of the Howard Hughes directed film The Outlaw, and also that famous picture of her in the hay. That hay picture is probably better than the film. And she also starred in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and 20 other films. She resided right here in California in the Santa Maria Valley along the central coast of California, where she died at her home in Santa Maria of, just got old, 89, on February 28th, 2011. Happy birthday, Jane Russell. On this day in history, 1788, New Hampshire becomes the 9th and last state necessary to ratify the Constitution of the United States, thereby making the document the law of the land. And if you remember, they had to go back and rewrite that thing a few times. And my history classes tell me that there was, it had to do with central government expanding that and to control imports, exports, and collecting taxes and that kind of stuff. And so they had to go back and rewrite it, and they finally got it done. But they needed 9 states out of 13 to ratify it. And New Hampshire stepped up, and there you go. And it's 1788, not 1776 or 77. It took 10 years to get that thing done, 1788. Fader fact, a camel can drink 53 gallons of water in 3 minutes. That is a Fader fact, and you are welcome. You break that down, I guess, so per minute, what is that? That's about 12 gallons, 11 gallons? No, wait a minute. It would be 15, 30, 45, 17 gallons a minute? Yeah, that's a lot. Without a straw. Tonight, William Henry is with us. We're going to be talking about the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. Tomorrow night, Nick Redfern's going to be here. Women in Black. Peter Joseph is here Thursday night, director of Zeitgeist and related films and a web series, too, as well. He's got a lot going on. And then John Rappaport is going to be here to open up the show with the No More Fake newsroom. And before I get to the news that you know nothing about, because we've got a lot of stuff to get out there that happened today, one of the things that if I was you and I was out there listening, which I still do, but I'm a big fan of talk radio and I listen a lot. But if I was you, Fade to Black is a cool thing. And the reason why? Because it's the escape you get from what's going on out there in the world, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can check in here and you're safe for 3 hours. You don't have to worry about anything. And that is what's really cool. When I used to, I'll tell you a quick story. When Coast to Coast first started to blow up, back in the early 90s. I'm going to say 93, 94, somewhere in that period. I went out and I could pick it up late at night in my car, right? But I couldn't pick it up in my house, although the studio, which had nothing to do with it, but the studio itself was across the street, right, from where I live in Sherman Oaks, where I broadcast from now when I do Coast. And so I went out and I bought the most expensive clock radio I could buy. Don't know what it was, but I bought it. Went to whatever was open back then. Federated. You guys remember Federated here in the Nethead? What are you doing? What is that's your dancing? That's your oh man. You got to follow us on Twitter right now. So I buy this clock radio and I bring it home, and it's got that AM radio wire that hangs out the back, and I'm dialing it in, and I don't get Coast. It's like crackling, and so I take the radio back the next day. I buy another one, come home that night, testing. I literally had to go down to my car where I could pick up. I'm like, okay, that's the right station. I'd go back upstairs, dial it in, didn't get it. I went back and I got a third clock radio, brought it back. That one, oddly enough, I'll say it right now, was a Sony CD player clock radio thing. And it wasn't expensive as the other two, but I get that one and I bring it home. And it worked. And I dialed in Coast. And that was my escape. I could not wait, to go to bed. I couldn't wait to just sit there and listen and escape. So I realize where you guys are coming from. I mean, if I was you, this is the show I would listen to, because I was in the same position. I would literally race home. No matter where I was, I had to be home by 10, and I had to have Coast to Coast on. I had to be in bed and ready to go. Dialed in, lights off. I did it every single night that I was in Los Angeles. And that's it. So that's what we do here every single night. We bring it. We do the best that we can. And tonight with William Henry, and that's why I'm bringing this up, Mary Magdalene. The stories that have gone around since my youth that I remember directly about Mary Magdalene when I was a kid, I specifically, remember not only talking to my mom about Mary and my teachers at school and other adults, because the picture that was painted for all of us, and this was, let's go to the mid-60s, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, that whole period. I went to a couple of Catholic schools in Chicago. I went to one school called St. Elizabeth. I did. The first one that I went to kindergarten and first grade in before St. Elizabeth was St. Teresa. St. Teresa. And the hardcore, man. Hardcore, real deal schools. And we would go to the library, and we would do these religious stories, and we would wear headphones and listen to these stories. And it was a thing that I thought that all kids, that was, that's what everybody did. And you get the Bible stories, Moses and Noah and all those stories. And you get the matching coloring book, and you would have tests and stuff afterwards. And I remember specifically one of the teachers there at that school telling us about Mary being, I forget the words that she used, but a woman of the night, a prostitute. And that's how she helped Jesus feed his disciples, right? And she would use her money. I was like, what? This is in the 68. I'm 5, right? 5 years old, 6 years old. I'm going home to my mom going, Mom, what is this prostitute that, what? And my mom just like backed up the whole story. And so that was the doctrine, that we were brought up with. I don't know when and where this whole smearing campaign started with Mary. But certainly over the last 20 or 30 years, probably since Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that the tide started to turn, and the knowledge about Mary Magdalene got out there for all of us. Because if we go back and we look at what the Bible says, I don't have it here in front of me, but somebody can go and look this up on Twitter. Google this for me and tweet it in. I don't know how many times Mary is mentioned in the Bible, because there's 3 Marys that are mentioned in the Bible. They're all there. But there isn't any talk about, her being a woman of ill repute. But that's the dogma that Christianity and the Catholic Church has fed us for a long, long, long time. But the tide has changed. And now the truth, or the alternate history, I should say, of Mary is out there now. And we have several choices in front of us. And I think that part that the church has been fighting is that the knowledge is out there universally now, not only from alternative researchers, but hardcore researchers and hardcore religious researchers that used to take the Bible literally, would take the Vatican's word literally, and spread that. And now it's a different kind of party. And we have all of these different versions of Mary that are all cool, by the way, to take a look at and to go and research and try to figure this out ourselves. Now, as of late, the Vatican now is starting to change their tune. Now, what the reason for it is, I don't know if we'll ever have some cardinal, from Vatican and Rome step up and have a press conference and go, okay, we need to apologize. We said the wrong things over the years, and now we're going to back up. We're going to clean this up. We did it because A, B, and C, and we're coming clean today because of A, B, and C. No, we're not going to see that. But in the Vatican's own way, they are starting to change their status of Mary Magdalene. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight with William Henry, the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. And the reason why this is so cool is because I know that the way that I have done my research over the last 20, 30, 40 years on this subject, which goes to René Le Chateau and the south of France and Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and those other books, not only about Mary, but about Jerusalem and what went down in the Mediterranean. And of course, all the way up through the Arthurian legends and so forth. But it is a subject that I just love. And I could not, and still to this day, I could not and cannot get enough of this information. It's one of the most interesting parts of human history. And we don't know how to change our own minds on it, because we have been taught a certain thing as fact forever. And now it's not really what it seems, is it? And William Henry's going to bring it tonight. I am so looking forward to this and enjoy the conversation with William, because as we go through the conversation, I want you to remember what I just said to you, going back to my childhood, and I've been trying to figure this mystery out. And tonight I'm going to continue to try to figure out this mystery. And having a guy on that has done nothing but research this forever in William Henry, now you're gonna hear that my child come out tonight. And hopefully I'm going to ask the right questions for all of you. It's going to be great. All right, today, all the news that you know nothing about. Today, North Korea has fired not one, but 2 ballistic missiles from its east coast, believed to be intermediate-range Musudan missiles. The first test launch, however, once again appeared to be unsuccessful, blowing up shortly after takeoff. 3 hours later, they fired a second missile, but yet there's no news on this one. The Japanese military and Navy are completely on alert. The launch of the 2 unidentified missiles from areas near Wonsan were detected and known. And I think the way that the language of everything happened today, the news of the imminent launch was there, but the second launch surprised everybody. The U.S. military also detected the launches. When the first one got, blew up right after launch, I started to think to myself, there might be the reason why they've had this run of unsuccessful launches, except for this last one. Don't know about the word on that. Because I'm just wondering, do you think, that there's a possibility that the Air Force or the Navy has got, some type of laser weapons or something working around there that they're stopping these immediately? Not necessarily a Patriot missile picking it out of the sky, which I wouldn't doubt that wouldn't happen in the near future. But these launches have all been unsuccessful. I'm just wondering. It's a possibility. Venezuelans are starving, and they are tired of waiting in line. In a revolt against the failing government, they are increasingly turning to rioting and looting to feed themselves. In the city of Cumaná, they raided more than 100 supermarkets and other food stores last week. Hundreds were arrested and 1 died. And the situation is desperate, and it's getting more and more desperate. Price controls, combined with the scarcity of goods, have resulted in absolute skyrocketing inflation. At current prices, it would take more than 20 times the minimum wage just to buy the basic food for a family of 5. Nearly 90% of the population of Venezuela right now cannot afford to buy enough food. Now, the Maduro government instituted a door-to-door distribution system. And they started that this year to prevent goods from entering the black market, or so they say, allegedly. But that's only increased frustration. Why? Because it turns out that distribution system is run by his political homies, his allies. So only his buds are getting the food. And it's a government tool to benefit his supporters. And I can't imagine it getting worse, but it probably will. They're working right now to get the required signatures to get him tossed out of office. They need 200,000. They're up to like 50,000 right now. The original petition to get him ousted had 2 million signatures. Now they're struggling to get past 50,000. It's corruption at its highest level. Routine commercial use of small drones was cleared for takeoff by the Obama administration today, after years of struggling to write rules that would both protect public safety and free the benefits of the new technology. Now, the FAA announced the creation of a new category of rules for drones that weigh less than 55 pounds. That's a big drone. The long-anticipated rules would mean that drone operators would be able to fly without special permission, commercially, by the way. Since 2014, the FAA has granted more than 6,100 waivers, and another 7,600 are waiting for approval. But if you're a professional commercial company, you can now go and fly your drone without having special permits. 55 pounds and under. Check this out. You ever wonder about a conspiracy? You know, if one is real? Listen to this. There's a conspiracy behind Starbucks coffee, for sure. The utility that ran the Fukushima nuclear plant acknowledged today its delayed disclosure of the meltdowns, and that's a key word here, at the 3 reactors was tantamount to a cover-up, and they officially apologized today. Tokyo Electric Power Company President Naomi Hiroshi's apology followed the revelation last week that an investigation had found Hiroshi's predecessor instructed officials during the 2011 disaster to avoid using the word meltdown, even though they knew that's exactly what was going on. Now, talk about a conspiracy. Well, check this out. A rare species of fish, typically found in Mexico, has been discovered in a cave in Texas, suggesting now that the United States and Mexico, the two countries, are linked via underground river systems and caverns. Since the 1960s, there have been rumors of sightings of blind white catfishes in the area, but this is the first official confirmation. The blind catfish, known as the Mexican blind cat, and by the way, it's got no eyes, it's white, looks like a catfish with no eyes, was recorded by a team from the University of Texas at Austin after being spotted and captured swimming near Del Rio in Texas. A National Park Service employee first spotted the fish. It's translucent skin, it's white, no eyes, and they spotted it last April near Limestone Cave. This discovery marks the first time that the fish was seen outside of Mexico. The fish is typical to the northern waters of the Rio Grande. And it's cool. No eyes. And you know what? The first thing that I'm thinking of is there's no reason to build that wall, Trump. We're connected with caves and underground rivers. It's official. This is Fade to Black. When I come back after the break, William Henry is here. The Ascension of Mary Magdalene. It's going to be one of those nights. Don't go anywhere. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. See you in a second.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, Give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here reminding you that June is Health Awareness Month, sponsored by GetTheTea.com. Many of you have heard our tea commercial, maybe visited the website, but haven't committed because, well, you just don't know. Skeptical. We understand. Just to remind you, our tea is not just tea. In fact, very little tea. Life Change Tea is a unique blend of 8 different herbs, removing intruders that attack your health. You brew our tea to make the concentrate, you add water, and put in the fridge. 2 8-ounce glasses a day, and life will be good. Visit us at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. And this month is lots of fun stuff with Health Awareness Month. You could be picked and receive your order absolutely free. You never know. Read the testimonies and try our products. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. And for great health tips, visit my YouTube channel at Health Matters Now, where you can learn about health tips and how products work on your body. Join me, GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, William Henry is with us, the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. It's going to be one of those great late-night talk show conversations. Get comfortable, turn things up just a little bit, get your favorite drink, your favorite beverage, light up a heater, pull up your blankie. Let's do this. Tomorrow night, Nick Redfern's going to be here, Women in Black. And then Thursday night, Peter Joseph is going to be here, the director of the Zeitgeist films. Of course, John Rappaport's going to open up the show. But tonight, it's William Henry, and he is a Nashville-based author, investigative mythologist, TV presenter. He's an internationally recognized authority on human spiritual potential, transformation, and ascension, with over 30 years of research distilled into 18 books and video presentations. He incorporates historical, religious, spiritual, scientific, archaeological, and other forms of knowledge into factually based theories and conclusions that we are actually experiencing in our lifetime. William is a contributor to the History Channel program Ancient Aliens and host of the Gaia TV series The Awakened Soul, The Lost Science of Ascension, and Arcanum. His latest book is The Skingularity. William is going to laugh. I've messed that up for the last year. The Skingularity is near. The next human, the perfect rainbow light body, and the technology of human transcendence. And tonight we are going to discuss the ascension of Mary Magdalene. William, you've got me all tongue-tied right now. Do you remember? You remember when last year when you were on Coast, and I blew it then. You know, I don't know why you created a word that is impossible for me to pronounce. Congratulations, man.
Well, yeah, it's one for the books, right?
Yeah, say it for me. You say it so well.
Skingularity.
See, why can't I get that past my brain? I just don't know why. And we've discussed this now for well over a year, and there you go. So 10 years from now, we can still tell this joke, which is fine with me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's Wonderful to talk with you, and thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody's posting their pictures of Fade to Black T-shirts, right? Everybody's posting them right now on Twitter. And,
cool.
It just made me think, did I give you a Fade to Black shirt when you were here in LA?
No, I don't have a Fade to Black shirt, actually.
Oh, that's right. Do I have your necklace? Oh, we were going to trade. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, it's coming back.
That's what it was, right.
Oh, I can't picture you. You have a good haberdasher. I can't imagine you in a Fade to Black shirt, but I'd be proud of you. I'd be proud of you wear it. Okay, now, before I jump into the program, what have you been up to since we saw you last here in Los Angeles?
Well, I have been, I've been in England for several weeks. My wife Claire and I were there. We're doing a tour of England based around the Tudors in September, so we were doing a little bit of advanced work for that. I've been doing some more work on Ancient Aliens. I did the Gaia TV show, The Awakened Soul, which has just started playing on Gaia TV. It's a 13-episode series, and along with that, I did 3 episodes with Corey Goode and David Wilcock, which are just kind of blowing the roof off the place out there right now. So those are some of the highlights. And then I'm trying to finish a new book right now about the Essenes. So that's kept me pretty busy this summer.
How was it hanging out with Corey? You know, I love the guy, and hanging out with him is a pretty neat experience. What did you think about that? What did you expect?
I didn't know that much about him going in. What happened was I've been researching blue spheres and blue sphere beings since 2002.
Right.
And collecting all the sacred art showing Jesus ascending on a blue sphere, blue avians, like blue Horus.
Right.
Bird beings in Egypt and so forth. And so for one of my episodes of The Awakened Soul, I was going over this and talking about Hildegard of Bingen's experience with Jesus as a blue being in a blue sphere, talking about Swami Muktananda and how this blue sphere can manifest from within us, and it's actually some sort of an interdimensional transportation vehicle. And the producer of Corey's show and my show, Jay Widener, just went nuts afterward. He's like, man, Corey Goode has to see this stuff because you're corroborating what he's been saying, and I didn't know what really he'd been saying. I just kind of caught the highlights of his show and never actually watched the show. And so they put us together and wanted us to just kind of have a spontaneous sort of conversation, which is what we did, and it was really high energy. Really learned a lot talking with him, and found him to be just basically a sincere, humble guy.
Yeah, and a very smart guy too, as well. You know, it's interesting to hear him. I want to say this in a correct way. It's interesting to watch his face and his mannerisms as he discusses this. I mean, it's a real eye-opening experience, and I think everybody, if they ever get a chance to see Corey in person, to go and do it, because he's got some information, and where it's coming from, him personally. You just sit and you listen. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, fascinating. And again, it was just really wild to be able to show him that, hey, a lot of the concepts that he's talking about are in fact well known and documented in the ancient world. And so that was news to him. And that's always exciting when you can kind of connect the dots with somebody like Corey, and especially like David Wilcock, who's an ultimate dot connector himself.
Yeah, no doubt. And over the last few years on this program, and certainly very early on, I had a couple of, more than a couple of phone calls from contactees that had witnessed these unique situations that I had not really had put things together yet about these spheres and beings being inside of these spheres. And I'm talking about calls from Alaska and the East Coast and Southern California, but everybody was, not connected, independent. These were callers, not researchers. but describing the same thing. And I kept hearing it over and over again. And, now Corey's got his stuff, and then your research, and more. And then we saw these weird things over at Contact in the Desert over the 2 weeks ago. And it's something's going on. I don't know what it is, William, but there is something going on with these spheres. I don't know yet, and I don't think any of us have quite gotten to the bottom line, but there's something going on for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's as I was saying, a phenomenon that's been talked about for at least a couple thousand years. So perhaps we're going to see some kind of great revelation as regards them, and I hope so. That would be incredibly exciting.
Now, I want to jump into Mary Magdalene, and my opening thing, and I mentioned this to you earlier today too as well, but when I say me, I'm referring to us, okay, everybody, the world. But
right.
We've all been taught growing up that certain religious dogma about Mary Magdalene, right? And although it was never anything that was in a Bible verse or anything, but it was the accepted conversation in religious circles about Mary. And then the new research started to come out, different books came out and so forth. And with the advent of the internet and the availability of information that is out there, our image now today isn't what we were brought up to learn and be taught about Mary. Why is it that the church, Catholic or Christian, it doesn't matter, chose to cloud and darken her reputation? Why it was done with intent. It was done with malice. But why did they do that?
Well, it happened during the Middle Ages, and this is when the image of Mary Magdalene as a repentant prostitute came online. And this is, as you say, it's found nowhere in the Bible, this description. And of course, it seems like the ultimate answer for why it was done was to disarm her and to take away the power that she actually possessed as Jesus' chief disciple and probably his wife as well. So it was a hit job on her to diminish her historically, so that people would not cast an eye towards, well, who was she? Why was she such an important part of his ministry?
Was it because she was a woman?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't have the chief apostle of Jesus being a woman. It just brings up too many questions, especially when you've got a male-dominated church. But, of course, throughout the church history, and I'll never forget, I used to run around with Sir Lawrence Gardner. Did you ever read any of Lawrence
absolutely,
Gardner's?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he had some wonderful books about, of course, the Grail and also Mary Magdalene. And he used to point out that a lot of the images from the Renaissance period forward of Mary Magdalene were some of the most highly educated women in Italy. And they were also the concubines of the popes and the higher-ups in the Catholic Church.
Well, and also, throughout history, there have always been very powerful women figures. You can go back throughout Egypt. You can look at England for any sorts of answers for that, and throughout Europe in the Middle Ages, there were always powerful women figures. Why would they single out Mary and use her? To discount her as a powerful figure in Jesus's life and for Christianity in general?
Well, because there's so many questions. Why was she the first witness of the resurrection?
Right.
Why did he appear to her of all the disciples after the resurrection? It pointed to too many linkages to her as an extremely special person that had to be diminished in order for the patriarchal church and its authority to superimpose itself over that.
Well, and you're right. She was first. She was first in the cave. She anointed him, cleaned him up. She was, and that's clearly in the Bible. So she was very important. But they want to turn that around we hear the stories as children, and it's like, man, what a cool chick. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they want to turn around and say, well, you know what? She really wasn't all that. She was actually a pretty bad, and her money came from bad places, and it's just like a weird thing to do when you learn one thing and then they try to twist it around. And I just don't understand the intent. I still don't.
And one of the terms that's ascribed to her is they call her a harlot. And this is supposed to be a diminutive expression. But actually, when you trace back the origins of the word harlot, these are the patronesses or priestesses of the goddess Ishtar. And she's another, she's another goddess or exemplar of the divine feminine that the church had to get rid of in order to reinforce its power structure.
And now today, we have such respect for her now today. But the fascination, I don't think it's ever going to end with Mary because of the Mary, Jesus's wife, Mary. There's so many Marys. That
right.
What is the fascination? Why is it that we just can't get enough of Mary Magdalene? We can't. I mean, we're hungry for more knowledge.
Well, I think that part of it has to do with anytime you label something as forbidden or heretical, that automatically sets up a kind of an allure that people have a hunger for that. They want to be on the inside. And so as soon as you label somebody in a negative term like that, it automatically draws attention to them.
Is it? So it backfired.
It backfired, right, exactly. Because all along, there have been the defenders of the Magdalene. In the Templars, Jacobus of Veragini was the one who actually called her the Illuminator or the Illumined, and that she was thought of as the enlightener of Jesus. And so here's another reason why they have to diminish her. In this context, she appears to be kind of more as the initiator of Jesus than the disciple. He emerges as sort of her daredevil test pilot. She's the one with a lot of this knowledge. He can't make his mission work without her. It's no coincidence that when he's challenged by the rabbis that he's proclaiming himself a messianic figure, and they're like, fine, well, show us what you got. It's put up or shut up kind of time. And that's exactly when she appears on the scene. It happens at Capernaum when the elder rabbis are challenging Jesus, and she comes right on the scene and then locks arms with them, and their mission together begins. That's not by coincidence. I think it's because she had tremendous knowledge that was absolutely required in order for him to complete his mission.
And now we have today, it happened on June 10th, and let's go ahead and jump into this. The Vatican now seems to be adjusting their view somewhat. And now this is big news for everybody, but can we expect maybe in the future that the Vatican would actually come clean and maybe apologize for what they've done in the smear campaign? And why
they will never apologize. Let me put it this way. They will probably apologize on the same day that they actually come out and say that the Shroud of Turin is the actual burial cloth of Jesus.
So not soon.
Not soon, right.
And what do you think the Vatican, putting the Gospel of Mary to the side, okay? We'll discuss that in a bit, but let's put that to the side. Do you think that the Vatican is in possession of the Mary Chronicles and they understand more than they are leading on to believe? Or do you think they're responding to public opinion?
I would say it's probably 70% responding to public opinion, because I don't have any direct evidence that they have actual hidden knowledge about Mary Magdalene. I'm sure it's possible that they do, but I just don't have the evidence of that. But they clearly are trying to open up the church. They're building bridges to Islam. They're trying to open the church up to more feminine evangelists. And they're proclaiming her the woman who loved Christ and was loved by Christ. And so, reading between the lines, they're acknowledging that they in fact were husband and wife.
Oh, let's talk about the events of June 10th. Let's go back to that. What exactly was said?
What happened is that the church put out a decree or an article. It was titled "The Apostle of the Apostles," and this was an update on the Vatican's position on Mary Magdalene. They're coming out and they're saying, actually, we've looked into this, and now we're going to upgrade her, and we're going to give her feast day. We're going to put her feast day on the liturgical calendar, and so this is effectively saying that she is equal to the other apostles. She's no longer diminished. They no longer have kind of the asterisk after her name.
Right.
It's like it's no longer going to read Mary Magdalene asterisk whore or prostitute.
I prefer whore. So
right. Exactly. And so they have the secretary, a person named Arthur Roque, who's the secretary of the Congregation for Divine Worship, who wrote this position paper, and that he says will, quote, reflect more deeply on the dignity of women, the new evangelization, and the greatness of the mystery of divine mercy.
Now, let me jump in, because the title of the decree was Apostolatorum Apostolum.
Right, Apostle of the Apostles.
Apostle of the Apostles. Now, that's pretty telling right there, and I think that's a huge step for the Vatican, because that can only mean one thing.
Right. She's the number one apostle, apart from all the others. She's the one that matters perhaps the most.
And this is as close as we'll get as to an apology. And, I want to drive this home, because I'm speaking for this audience right now. We all know how we were taught, growing up. And to have this about face right now, I think it's a very, very, very big deal.
I think so, too. And I appreciate you taking the time on the show to talk about it, too, Jimmy, to really highlight it, because it is an open door. And as we'll talk, what I find most interesting about it is not just that they elevated Mary Magdalene and acknowledged her as the apostle of the apostles, but they tied it into a really important bit of mysticism as well. This mystery of divine mercy is absolutely incredible when we research that out, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. So put those two pieces together, and it seems like the church is starting to make some really major steps forward to take more of a metaphysical, even a mystical approach to what it's offering the church members. And putting Mary Magdalene forward now as the apostle of the apostles is a huge move in that regard, because she carries with her so much weight in terms of esoteric knowledge and her esoteric role in the initiation of Jesus, and ultimately and especially in his resurrection and his ascension.
Now, tonight what I would like to do is, I think that there are 3, 4, or 5 pretty legitimate pop culture views of who Mary Magdalene is. And I want to break down those with you tonight. And obviously, I need to know who you think she was.
Okay.
But combined with all of that, there was some stuff that went down at the resurrection. And you point these out. Everybody should go and read William's article. You go to his website, williamhenry.net, and click on, I think it's articles, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And read the article there and look at the illustrations. We've got some of the illustrations we're going to, the historical artwork we're going to put up in Twitter during the show tonight, and you can kind of run along with us. But the article itself is an eye-opener, and I'm going to say this now. I said this to William earlier, and man, I hate to pontificate like this, but it is that as I got to the end of William's article, I came away with questions. And that's what I love. And I just told William today, I was like, dude, now I've got 2 weeks of research to do. But it was brilliant. It was just so well written, but it opens up doors to questions too as well. And I don't know if it was intentional on your part, William, but it was really well done. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, and so that being said, we've got maybe 3-4 different versions of Mary, and then we have the official doctrine of the Bible, right? So we can consider that a version too as well. We have the hardcore Bible version. We have the Arthurian legend, Holy Grail. She's the bloodline. South of France, that Mary. We have the Mary, the prostitute. We have that version. We have Mary, the wife, and there's that. I mean, there's a combination of things that are all going on at the same time. And which way are you leaning? Who was Mary?
Well, the key for me is her role as the anointer of Christ, and the question that ultimately arises from that is what was that oil that she anointed him with? We know what the Bible says, that it was spikenard and so forth, but I know also that she had a deep connection to ancient alchemy.
Right.
And I also know there was a wonderful book. A woman, she died just a few years ago. Her name was Jane Schauberg. She taught religious studies and women's studies at the University of Detroit Mercy. She wrote a book called The Resurrection of Mary Magdalene, and I quoted her in my book, The Illuminator, because she said that Migdal or Magdala, which is the place where Mary Magdalene came from, and which is the source of her name, Magdala meant the tower. In her name, technically, Mary Magdalene means the beloved tower. But what Jane Schauberg said was that Magdala had a very high place in women's mystical and literary traditions, and that specifically Magdala was a place name well known in the ancient world, and effectively it meant something like Wonderland or Oz means today. So if you say something like, man, that chick is right out of Wonderland or Oz, we know that means, okay, she's coming from another place, an other dimensional place, a strange sort of dimension in a way, right? And Magdala in the ancient world carried that same kind of a meaning. It was a magical place associated with knowledge of extraordinary beings that dwell in otherworldly realms, and she was a master of this teaching. Ultimately, Magdala was a center for what is called in Jewish mysticism Merkaba mysticism. Merkaba mysticism is about the transformation of the human body into a being of light.
And that's right there. We're going to have to take a break, and we're going to stop right there because it's going to open up for everybody when I let William finish right after this break. And when we come back, that oil is a very interesting part of the Mary story, and we're going to have William share that with you right after the break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Our guest tonight, William Henry and the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Results may vary.
Hello, I'm Jerry Mathers. I was the beaver in Leave It to Beaver. And 20 years ago, I almost died from type 2 diabetes. When I was diagnosed with type 2, I was shocked. My blood sugar was through the roof. Now, the very same natural remedies I use to control my type 2 diabetes are available for you in a super easy program called the Diabetes Solution Kit. And I should know it works. I use the very same techniques to drop 40 pounds of fat, get my blood sugar under control, and watch my type 2 diabetes fade into thin air. If you have diabetes, I urge you to try this step-by-step plan. It has all the natural techniques I used, and it works a lot faster, too. I'm Jerry Mathers, and if I can do it, you can do it, too.
If you'd like to normalize your blood sugar and stop taking your diabetes medication completely with your doctor's approval, go to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com. Reverse your diabetes in as little as 30 days by going to 33diabetesreverse.com. That's 33diabetesreverse.com now.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight is William Henry, the Ascension of Mary Magdalene. Tomorrow night, Nick Redfern's going to be here. We're going to be doing Women in Black. Thursday night, the director of the Zeitgeist films, Peter Joseph, is here with John Rappaport. Hey, William, before we jump ahead, have you seen Zeitgeist, the films?
I've seen parts of it, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And for you, that first 10 minutes, you know, the religious part of the film.
Right.
Yeah. I would imagine that you would have comments on that. But anyway, I'm so excited. Peter's going to be here on Thursday night. And that guy, you know, probably didn't know at the time that that film was going to freak out so many people, you know, tens of millions.
Yeah, had a huge impact, didn't it? And then he did a follow-up, didn't he? A second Zeitgeist film?
Yep. And now, and he's got a web-based TV series, and he's been, he's got this movement that started just because, he didn't start the movement, the people did, and it's pretty interesting what he has gone through. And he's a musician, he's a drummer. All of this other stuff. He had his views, of the world, but really, honestly, I think he just wanted to be a musician, and this stuff has just been dropped on him.
destiny. You just never know, do you?
No, you don't. No. Yeah, I was a guitar player, and look at me. So there you go. All right, now I kind of want to go to the end and start at the end and then start over. So I want to because we started talking about alchemy, but Chrism. What is Chrism? Yes. Let's start there, and then we'll back up and we'll discuss artwork and everything else. But Chrism flipped me out today. So, what is Chrism?
Chrism is an oil. It's mentioned in the Gnostic Gospel of Philip. And the Gospel of Philip it's more like an encyclopedia. It's kind of a collection of beliefs of the Gnostics. And in the Gospel of Philip, we are told that Chrism is the anointing oil, and that in fact Christians are named after this oil rather than being named after Christ.
That almost sounds like blasphemy.
Well, yeah, it's completely opposite to what you get from the traditional Christian teaching.
Right.
And one of the reasons why they don't like you talking about Chrism is because the Gospel of Philip goes on to say that Chrism is the name of Mary Magdalene's oil, and that this oil produced the resurrection.
Again, sounds like blasphemy.
It's terrible, right? It's total blasphemy. It's heresy, according to the Christian perspective, because according to Christianity, Christ was raised by the power of God, this resurrection power.
Not alchemy.
Not an oil that was
right.
Could have been produced by a prostitute or anybody else. But the fact of the matter is that this oil has a very interesting lineage, if you will. It goes back into the story of the Watcher angels and the Archangel Michael taking the pre-flood sage Enoch into the heavenly realms, anointing him with an oil that dissolves Enoch's body into light, so that his body is now the same glorious light body as the other angels. And so we're talking about a substance here that has enormous power, and this story suggests, the Gospel of Philip suggests, that Mary Magdalene may have had that very same oil that the Archangel Michael had used to dissolve Enoch's body into light.
So
the Bible does tell us that Mary Magdalene was present in the tomb, that she was the first woman to come to the tomb to anoint the body of Jesus. And there are several other women, and only women, that are mentioned as being part of this anointing crew, if you will. You had Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus' wealthy uncle, and Nicodemus, who were preparing his body with herbs. But it was the women. It was Mary and another woman named Joanna, who were present in the tomb that anointed the body of Jesus. And the Gospel of Philip is saying that the oil that they used to anoint him with was chrism, and that perhaps this is the source of the resurrection and not the power of God.
So now we have the fifth version of Mary the alchemist.
Yes, exactly. What exactly was in that alabaster jar that she is so famous for possessing? And when you look at Christian art portraying the entombment of Jesus, or when you'll see Mary Magdalene in the tomb with Jesus, you'll, especially in Renaissance art, you will almost always see her holding this alabaster jar in her hand, and when you put these pieces of information together, it suggests that alabaster jar did not contain nard or spikenard like the Bible says. No, it contained this incredibly powerful substance that may have come from the angels, from the Watcher angels, and that this is the source of the resurrection. This is what would have dissolved Jesus' body into light, and would have been the source of the power source, perhaps, that even created the image on the Shroud of Turin.
How did you start to put this together? Because it's very, very interesting. And you start to look at it now, you put on a different pair of glasses, and you start to look at the entire story as it is presented in the Bible, word for word, and you look at it like this. Now we've got a different picture of not only Mary, but Jesus too, and the resurrection, and actually what was going on there.
Right, exactly. I think I started, well, of course, I was inspired by Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that the book by Michael Bagent, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln. I read that in 1982 and was fired up by the possibility of the existence of these parallel Christian mysteries that the Catholic Church has been trying to destroy for centuries, and it launched me on a quest to uncover those mysteries. And I'm still pulling on that golden thread that I first pulled on, whatever it was, 35 years ago.
Right.
And through the intervening years, a lot of other researchers came online. Lawrence Gardner and others in the popular area picked up some of this information and brought it forward. As I mentioned earlier, really enjoyed spending time with Lawrence. He was a very open-minded researcher, a lot of fun to hang out with too. And he inspired me tremendously to follow the Magdalene path. And then I started trying to scale the ivory towers, if you will, and see what the academics were saying about Mary Magdalene. And that's when I came upon the work of the professor I mentioned a moment ago, Jane Schauberg, who connected Mary Magdalene to the resurrection mysteries and said that she was in fact a master of the Merkaba mysticism, of Jewish mysticism, which is about the transformation of the human body into a vehicle of light. The word Merkaba means throne chariot or throne chariot mysticism, and they believed that ultimately the human body was capable of manifesting this ascension vehicle. And if Mary Magdalene came from a let's say a university center, if that's what Magdala really was, where this knowledge was possessed and taught, it would make her an extremely knowledgeable person and a person of immense interest to Jesus as well, who was about fulfilling the Essene mission of introducing a new human being that would be capable of joining the celestial beings. Because what the academics know and what the Dead Sea Scrolls make extremely clear is that Jesus was, if not an Essene, he clearly was pro-Essene in his teaching. And secondly, that the Essenes, their primary mission was to learn how to become celestial beings. They maintain in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Essenes do, that they were living with angels, and that the angels were teaching them how to become angels. Now, the thing about it is that these angels that we're talking about here are not your cuddly Hallmark card angels. These angels are the Watcher angels. These are the highest order of angels, and there are scholars that will tell you that these Watcher angels are, in fact, the Anunnaki. So what this is saying is that Jesus was part of a movement, and Mary Magdalene was right in step with him, that was introducing knowledge brought to earth by the Anunnaki that related specifically to how a human being can transform their flesh and blood body into a fiery being of light. And the answer for how they did that was with an oil called Chrism.
What was the? I have two questions, well, first off, what is Chrism made of? We need to address that, and that's extremely interesting. And two, did Mary seek out Jesus, or was she told about Jesus and was instructed from the tower to go and find this man? So let's start off now with Chrism. What is it made of?
The answer is I don't know. We don't have a recipe for it. But when I look into it, I was hugely inspired 5-6 years ago by new research that was being done on the placebo effect. And this research said that they had it down to the point where the placebos were beating all the new pharmaceuticals in trials.
Right.
And they even had a cream that they had developed. They knew exactly where to put that cream on a person's body, on their spinal cord, on the back of the neck, to relieve pain. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, maybe there was no oil. maybe it was all placebo. Maybe she was so powerful that she could say, now, honey, Jesus, I'm gonna anoint you with this oil, and as we do this, it's going to activate latent capabilities within you, and you're gonna dissolve into light. I know that sounds really extreme, but I also know that then would sync up with the power of the mind. The power of God is the power source for the resurrection. So I'm really still investigating this question of what exactly that oil was. Even in the story of the Watcher Angels, when the Archangel Michael takes Enoch into the heavenly realms and anoints his body with an oil and it dissolves into light, we're not told what that oil was made of, but because it takes place in the heavenly realms, it suggests to me that the power of this oil is beyond our earthly consciousness. It's not just the power of the mind, it's actually something capable of activating the power of the soul or the consciousness of the soul itself.
And there's the legend of it possibly coming from a chemical from the brain or another secretion.
Right, but that would be an earthly power. So I'm looking to this oil as ultimately being some kind of an other dimensional substance, or capable of tapping an other dimensional power that can then dissolve the body into light, and that would ultimately then involve kickstarting some physical process within the body. But the ultimate source, I think, is beyond the earth realm.
Now, have you talked to any alchemists, researchers out there, like Jay Widener would be a good source about the makings of Chrism?
No, I haven't. I've kind of kept this research to myself in a way. I talk about it in my presentations, but I haven't gone that public with it, and there's a reason for that. I talked about another substance once with Art Bell on Coast to Coast back in 1998, and I had a very strange circumstance that occurred immediately after that, which resulted in all of my research, my computer, every book, every scrap of evidence that I had about this substance was stolen from me.
Interesting.
So I decided I'd go a little more tight-lipped on certain subjects, and Chrism certainly fell into that category.
When I talk to different researchers about alchemy, it's pretty funny. There are some guys that are pretty close to the fire, and they will immediately just go, you know what? I've said all that I can say. They just, I think some of it is out of fear, and also some things are meant to be kept secret. And I've tried, William, I have tried, man. I've really tried. And that's an area that is out there that, when you're too close to the fire, when somebody says, you know what, I just can't discuss it.
Right, exactly. And even when the police came, and I filed a police report after my car was broken into. They said, "Well, what was it that was stolen?" I said, "All these." I told them the nature of the books and some of this stuff, and they said, "Oh, well, are there people out there that would want that information?" And it's like, yeah.
Oh man. So, okay, now let's back up and let's talk about Sister, the discovery of the vision, I should say, of Christ that appeared, and the lights that, man, I'm making this sound stranger than it is. Actually, it is pretty strange. The lights that emanated from his chest.
Yeah. So when I read about the announcement from the Vatican, where they said that that Mary they're going to elevate her to elevate her feast, they then go on to say that this decision, and I'll read the quote again, will reflect more deeply on the dignity of women, the new evangelization, and the greatness of the mystery of divine mercy. Now, I'm not Catholic, so that terminology was brand new to me. And as soon as I read that, I'm thinking, the mystery of divine mercy, what is that? And so I did my research on it, and it turns out that the mystery of divine mercy refers to an event that happened to a Polish woman, a nun, who was canonized. Her name is Faustina Kowalska. She died in 1938. And she tells how the resurrected Jesus manifested to her physically and asked her to make a new painting of him in which he would be portrayed in a white cloak with red and white light beaming from his body. And he told her that all who venerate this image that she was to create, and she protested that she's not a painter and she couldn't possibly fulfill what he was asking her to do, but he didn't seem too worried about that. He just kind of inferred she'll find a painter to make this image.
Right.
And what he said was that if she puts the signature underneath it, Jesus, I trust in you, that the person who venerates this image, their soul will not perish. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is absolutely incredible. You have a manifestation of a celestial light being coming to this woman, telling her to make a painting that he insists that millions upon millions of people will venerate, adore, or love this painting. And because of the divine love that is transmitted through this painting, their souls will not perish.
Now, didn't she say, William, that this wasn't a dream, that he was physically in front of her?
Says.
Right.
Yeah, that's what she said.
And they had and they talked. They actually had a conversation.
Yes, and this is what is referred to as this mystery. He's called the King of Divine Mercy in this painting. And this is what is referred to as the mystery of divine mercy. And I'm blown away by this, Jimmy, because I've spent the past at least 5 years documenting the power of sacred art to transmit holy vibrations and to actually alter people, to program our DNA and to activate our inner light body. And here is Jesus showing up to this Polish woman who later becomes a saint, and telling her exactly that same thing, that if you make this image, anybody who looks at this and venerates it, adores it, loves it, their soul will not perish. This is like, to me, the ultimate divine alchemy. It goes all the way back to the ancient Egyptian belief that those images on the temple walls are not just pretty pictures. They are magically active. They were considered two-way portals, like sacred mirrors. And in early Christianity, they made sacred icons of for example, the transfiguration of Jesus when he morphed into light.
Right.
And the early Christians were taught that these icons, these sacred images, were actually mirrors, and the term they used was portals to the divine realm, and that by contemplating, meditating, and reflecting on these images, our DNA then can be activated, and our body will then begin to transfigure just like Jesus is doing in these paintings.
Almost like divine software.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is.
In that, software is just ones and zeros, but then it does something. And like the paintings and the carvings back in Egypt, they were carvings on a wall, but they did something. And it's like a divine software. I don't want to sound strange, but...
No, it's so exciting because the Tibetans talk about this. And they talk about their guru, Padmasambhava, who's the rainbow-bodied guru. He teaches how the human body can be dissolved into light and ultimately manifest as five-colored rainbow light, which precisely matches the way the resurrected Jesus is shown in Christian art. And the Tibetans teach that just looking at these images activates our light body. Well, how does that happen?
Right.
Well, there's two explanations. One is the neuroscience explanation, where I can take you to art historians who will tell you that they now have the neuroscience that shows that when you are looking at a piece of art, whether it's an image of, say, Jesus resurrecting or the Transfiguration, your brain, the neurons in your brain called mirror neurons, are firing as if that is happening to you.
Yes.
But we put the brakes on, and the question is, how do we go full Monty with it, if you will? How do we go full activation with that? The other explanation for how this art can do this is that in the case of the Tibetan guru Padmasambhava, he's an avatar. He's an energy being, and he can manifest in any way conceivable, including a piece of art, to transmit the divine vibrations of the rainbow body. And here's the Catholic Church saying that this mystery of the divine mercy, which has to do with Jesus telling this woman to make this painting of him radiating light so that everybody who sees it and loves it, their soul will not perish, that they are linking that mystery with the ascension of Mary Magdalene and putting her up there as the apostle of the apostles. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they're inching towards something very, very profound. And ultimately, what I connect this with is that when they put the Shroud of Turin on display last year in 2015, the Pope Francis, called the Shroud of Turin an icon of love. Not a relic. He called it an icon.
Right.
So what he is saying is that the Shroud of Turin also is one of these magically active sacred portals. And so I think they're starting to really open us up here as you connect the dots and follow this line of thinking, that they're putting us on the path of something incredibly profound, that just by looking at the image of the Shroud of Turin, or looking at an image here, for example, of the painting of Divine Mercy, that we can activate our own light bodies by syncing up with these images of the resurrected Christ. That's how this teaching is transmitted.
When you first saw the I Trust in You painting, what did you think?
I was just absolutely blown away because, first of all, he's wearing a white linen robe, which is always the symbol for the light body. This is why the Essenes wore white linen robes. This is why in the tomb on Easter morning you have the two men in white. They're wearing these white linen robes because it's symbolic of the attainment of the light body. But I'm also seeing the rainbow colors that are present in the linen as well. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, and this is the first time I'd ever seen this image. This is a beautiful image of Jesus, of the resurrected Jesus in his light body or his rainbow body.
Now, we're going to hit a break here. And when we come back, William, I'm going to ask you directly, are we starting to look at Jesus a little bit differently? Because if it was a mechanical aspect to the resurrection, oil that caused the resurrection and not something more divine, Son of God situation, how is religion going to start to react to this? And we'll discuss.
Let's be sure and talk about the stone, too.
Yes, and we'll get to that, too, as well. Our guest tonight, William Henry. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with William after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
FoodForLiberty.com sells high-quality storable foods from Numana. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or an outdoor sports enthusiast, FoodForLiberty.com has your prepackaged single-serve packs or kits for the entire family. Numana is known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, super nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. With a 25-year shelf life, you can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. Right now, FoodForLiberty.com is offering a special gift, a heavy-duty Survivor dry storage box designed for extreme bug-out conditions. This storage box is built to last, includes compass, signaling mirror, and is yours free with a $50 order. Go to FoodForLiberty.com right now and pick up your quality storable foods from Numana. To get the Survivor dry storage box, use promo code LIBERTY. It makes good sense to be prepared. Go to FoodForLiberty.com.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, William Henry. Yeah, kicking the tires, lighting some fires. William is the best at that. Our guest tonight, or tomorrow night, is Nick Redfern. And then Thursday nights, Peter Joseph and John Rappaport will be here. So, William, I'm not playing around about this. This version of Mary, version 5, with the possibility of alchemy and this oil being the cause of the resurrection and not something more divine, is going to upset some people. And are we now, how are we presenting Jesus now? And that's an important thing to address.
Well, I think what we're looking at Jesus from the Essene perspective, certainly. Because, again, he's not clearly an Essene, but he is clearly pro-Essene. His teachings are based on the Essenes' mysticism, especially his teaching about the commandments of loving the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, love your neighbor as yourself. That came from the Essenes, and that is the foundation of his teaching. There's no question that's where that came from. And also that the Essenes were obsessed with technologies even, you can say, given to them by the Watcher angels. You can argue that they are the Anunnaki, that can transform a human into a celestial being. I mean, they literally have this belief that there is there's a conduit between earth and heaven, and their community, the Essene community, was that conduit. And what they possessed was the secret knowledge of how to turn a human into an angel. And Jesus was the prime modeler or exemplar of that teaching. And the resurrection in particular was based on this Essene teaching of a human transformation into a celestial being. The swapping of our earthly flesh for celestial flesh. And so the question then becomes, well, how did they do that? The Essenes talk about using chanting, meditation, diet, but clearly Mary Magdalene also used an oil. And then you have the evidence now of the stone. We can bring that into it as well, the stone upon which his body was laid in the tomb. There's a Vatican researcher named Barbara Fracke who researched this out, going into the proverbial vaults of the Vatican, the secret archives, and getting these testimonies that were given by under torture, given by the Knights Templar down in Carcassonne, that talked about how the Templars possessed these strips of linen that they would wear. And they were told to put on these strips of linen and never to take them off. And they didn't know where they came from or what they were exactly. All they knew was that if they put on these strips of linen around their waist, that this would grant them safe passage and protection in the earthly realm, but more importantly, it would grant them safe passage in the afterlife realm. Well, what Barbara Fracke shows is that these Templars finally confessed that these linen strips were originally laid on the stone of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which they believed was the stone from which Jesus resurrected. And that because these linen strips were placed on this stone, they were sort of, to use our term, charged up.
Interesting.
That there was a vibration that was contained within that stone. And then after the Templars lost control of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, they started charging these linen strips by placing them on the frame and the container that contained the Shroud of Turin.
What was the stone made of?
Well, that's the ultimate question.
It is,
there are
isn't
so
it?
many weird legends about Moses acquiring this celestial stone, these sapphire stones of wisdom.
Right.
In the Tibetan tradition, they tell you that the light body, the resurrection body, the rainbow body is produced by an otherworldly stone called the Chintamani or Chintamani stone. And so you put all this together and you wonder, well, maybe there was some kind of an otherworldly stone that was involved. That his body, when you get the cartoon version of the tomb or the cave, as many people refer to it, of Joseph of Arimathea, and you're thinking it's this simple rock cut cave or tomb, nothing going on there.
Right.
But then when you start to look at the story from the evidence that's been gathered over the past 20, 30 years from research done by the Templars and others that claim that they know, it starts to appear that this was some kind of a very special place, very extraordinary place that might have involved the use of chrism oil, that might have involved the use of some otherworldly stone slab that was part of the whole resurrection process. And so, as we've been saying, that this is blasphemy, this is heresy, and so forth. But to the Gnostics, no, they believed, as did the Essenes, that these were actual tools or implements, technologies that were given to them by the Watcher Angels. And remember, one of the raps about the Watcher Angels, they're called the fallen ones in some people's opinion, is because they brought these technologies to humans, but also specifically they taught humans the secrets of heaven. Well, what are the secrets of heaven? Well, the secrets of heaven are how humans can drop their earthly flesh and blood bodies and become celestial light beings.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal.
That's the whole goal,
right.
Exactly, because you're not getting off this rock otherwise. At least that's what the Tibetans teach. Christianity has its own version of that with the Judgment Day scenario, where all the believers will be resurrected or raptured out of here, and they will assume exactly the same body that the resurrected Christ has. which means that we will somehow attain our light body. And the church's position is you will attain this light body by your belief in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. The Gnostics, the heretics, the blasphemers say, well, I think I could also get there if I had a little dab of that chrism oil and maybe that stone.
Right.
If I could get close to that. And what the church is inching towards now is the same thing the Templars were believing, that if you want to match the frequency of the resurrected Christ, you can do so by meditating on an image of the resurrected Christ. And as a guru, an avatar, he can come through that image and program your DNA. And you can also, and that's the image of divine mercy we've been talking about, that they're connecting here to Mary Magdalene, but also the Shroud of Turin itself is a transmitter of this code of resurrection.
Now, are we now starting to illustrate this history directly tying Mary to the Watchers / Anunnaki / ET? Okay, and that information that was given to Mary, that Mary didn't necessarily get her information from Jesus himself, as all of his disciples did, because he was teaching everybody. And now we're starting to twist this around in another direction, that Mary was the possessor of this knowledge, and that it was the Son of God direct intervention that happened in that cave wasn't actually the case, that we can actually go back with knowledge from the Anunnaki and the Watchers that ties all of this together, and that's how the ascension of the resurrection happened.
Yes, that's exactly what we're saying. And again, it comes out of, this is, again, the sources, the Dead Sea Scrolls, where the Essenes are obsessed with the resurrection power of Christ. They maintain explicitly that they live in a community with angels. Who are the angels? The Watchers. Right. And again, you have scholars that say the Watchers, there's enough crossover between the Watchers, enough similarity between the Watchers and the Anunnaki to tie them together. And so you're talking about a community of people that maintain their living with these angels, that the angels are teaching humans how to become angels. And this is one of the reasons why the Essenes were so obsessed with purity, and that their community was isolated, because they were dwelling with higher dimensional beings, to use sort of a New Age term. And this was done for the protection of people as well, because if you weren't, one of the primary tests that the Essenes had was that you had to be pure of heart in order to interact with these angelic beings, these celestial beings. And so this was the isolation and the purity was done to protect people, because if you got too close to them, you were going to have problems. Even the Catholic Church says that you wanted to avoid the seraphim angels, which are the same as the Watcher angels, because their frequency was so high it would just burn up a human on contact. And they were the original deliverers of this knowledge of resurrection to earth. And Enoch was the very first person to receive this teaching. And this is why some scholars maintain that Enoch was actually the founder of the Essenes. And so when you look at the story of Enoch and his ascension and how he was transformed into an angelic being via the oil, and then you compare it with the story of Jesus and his resurrection and ascension, they're describing exactly the same thing, even to the point where they talk about how as Enoch's body was being dissolved by the oil, that it took on like a fiery characteristic, that all of his bones, his flesh, and everything was turning into flame or fire. And this is exactly what we ultimately see evidence then in the Shroud of Turin, as they believe that the image on the Shroud of Turin was created by a burst of light that came from within the body of the person who is represented on the shroud. And as my good friend Greg Braden says, there is no scientifically valid reason not to believe that the Shroud of Turin isn't the actual burial shroud of Jesus.
Love Greg, by the way. He's the best. The alchemist out there, some of the secrets that they hold near and dear, a couple of these processes that they do and the knowledge that they possess for extended life and so forth. These processes ultimately result in exactly what you're talking about. The removal of the flesh, the regrowing of the flesh, your teeth fall out, and you experience a rebirth. This happens over a period of time in darkness and so forth. But the burning of the skin and the pain and the rebuilding of the nerves, it's an extreme thing to go through, but it's exactly what you're referring to here. And if Mary was an alchemist, there seems to be a direct connection. Am I wrong?
There is a direct connection. We alluded to it earlier when the Jewish elders confronted Jesus in the synagogue at Capernaum, and they demanded, they're saying to him, hey, if you're telling us you're going to replace him for Moses, then you're going to have to produce the bread of God, the manna that Moses enabled to miraculously rain from heaven and fed the Israelites during their wandering in the wilderness. This was one of the tests, one of the criteria. So they're telling Jesus right here, it's like, dude, you're gonna have to make it rain manna, this celestial substance. And Jesus then comes back and he starts identifying himself as the bread of God that came down from heaven and gives life unto the world. He talks about himself as this living bread, and he talks explicitly in the book of Revelation as he's talking to John the Revelator about the hidden manna and the white stone that has the new name of God written on it and the secrecy around this stone. So this is exactly when Mary Magdalene comes into Jesus' life, is there at Capernaum as he's being challenged to make this bread substance. And this bread substance, if you follow the path of Lawrence Gardner and others, is an alchemical substance that feeds the light body, that promotes the growth of the light body. And so this is where proposing Mary Magdalene comes into the picture as a person who possesses direct knowledge of how to produce this manna substance. And this is when they partner up, if you will, on this mission. And he is then able to demonstrate his knowledge of this manna, of this bread of life, and fulfill that demand by the Jewish elders that he, like Moses, produce this ethereal cosmic substance.
In your book, The Illuminator, you talk about Mary Magdalene as an alchemist, and then her also being the illuminated one, and that brings up the Illuminati.
Yes.
And we have the modern versions of that definition today in pop culture.
Right.
But are we cross-pollinating here? Are we directly connecting her to the Illuminati of its popular definition today?
Well, they're two different. They're the same word with two different meanings. In the 13th century, Jacobus de Voragine was a legend maker, and he is the one that started calling Mary Magdalene the Illuminata, the Illuminatrix, or the Illumined or the Illuminator. And it's interesting that when you look up the word Illuminati in the dictionary, it means enlightened ones, and this is one of the terms that was used for the first Christians. They called themselves the Illuminati because it meant newly baptized Christian initiate, and they actually used a lighted candle as the symbol of their initiation. And that word Illuminati then, of course, is picked up later on. It's used by Joseph Weishaupt and others in the 18th century, and now becomes the name of this elite group that everybody is familiar with today. So same word, but different meaning.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that, because when the audience hears alchemy and Illuminati and Mary Magdalene in the same sentence, I don't want that to get twisted around.
Right, exactly. And it means Illuminata literally meant to be illumined, both in your mind and also to be radiant. And this is this brings up kind of a crossroads that people have to kind of pick and choose on their own which path they want to go down. Like, for example, when the Israelite high priest would enter into the Holy of Holies of Solomon's temple, they characterized this as entering heaven. And then the high priest would come back down out of heaven and talk to the people where they would view him as an illuminated being. And what they say is that this is all metaphor, that they were entering into a special part of the temple, and when they appeared as an illuminated being, that they were simply just giving wisdom to the people. So that's one way of looking at this. But the other way is to take it literally and to say that, as the story suggests, that Solomon's temple itself was also a portal, and that when the high priest crossed over the veil of the Holy of Holies and interacted with the Ark of the Covenant, which was in the Holy of Holies, that he literally entered into a heavenly space and emerged as a luminous or radiant person, just like Moses was shining after he had his encounter with Yahweh in the burning bush, and that he wasn't just sharing wisdom, he was actually shedding light, glowing.
He might have been sunburnt.
Yeah, right, exactly. and so in this way, the word illuminated means the same thing as glorified or to be in glory, which means simply to glow rays.
Yeah, I'm not making a joke about it. I'm just saying he was in the presence of something very, very hot. You know?
Exactly. And they literally had to shield his face because he was radiating light.
Now, I want to address something because I think you're going to find this very interesting. As soon as we started posting the "I Trust in You" painting, right, with the red and blue light, the immediate reaction,
the red and white.
Yeah. What did I say? Red and blue.
Red and blue.
Sorry, red and white. The immediate reaction in Twitter and the chat rooms was they see the Knights Templar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I mean, unsolicited. And I've got to throw that back at you. It is kind of obvious, isn't it? Totally
obvious. In fact, Jesus talks about the red and the white in his conversation with the Catholic nun, and telling her the meaning of that it refers to the cleansing of the soul and the cleansing of the blood. And so this is absolutely a link, one, to alchemy, which with the two colors, red and white, being the symbol of alchemy and the mixing of the two streams, if you will, and then gives us another reason why the Templars wore the white garments with the red cross. It's the same color combination, has the same meaning ultimately.
And again, back to what you had said at the very, very beginning. When you look at something, we're talking about that software, that activation.
Yeah.
And immediately when I see the audience here react, all, like I said, unsolicited, and see the same thing, something's going on. It's pretty interesting.
Very interesting. And again, just to repeat, we're told that in Catholic devotions, they tell us that this image is a conduit for grace. And the key thing here is that we now have the neuroscience behind this that tells us how this image could potentially act as a conduit to another realm and begin to magically, if you will, activate our own light bodies. It's the most incredible form of spiritual practice I think I've ever encountered. It's so powerful, it's so subtle, but at the same time, it is, to me, the most profound thing that we can begin to incorporate in all our spiritual practices, whether you pray, meditate, chant, whatever. I highly encourage incorporating this image as part of your practice, because here we are being told by Jesus himself, according to this nun's account, that he wants this painting to serve as a way for him to transmit to us the vibration of the resurrection. And the key thing is that he's telling us that if we venerate it, if we love and adore the image, that our soul will not perish. And along with that, we have to imagine that this potentially is a way also for Jesus to show his love for us, too.
Now, the question arises, how many apostles officially now today?
I don't know. I mean, the numbers, it's usually 12, but it has to be 13, including Mary Magdalene. But I'm not sure if the Catholics venerate more than 13 apostles or not.
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to do? Are they going to go back? Is it legal to rewrite the Bible?
We do it all the time, right?
Yeah, right. Because
I mean, you got the new international. You had the new international version. Now there's the new international version. I imagine next year there's going to be a new international version. Because
we have the 12 apostles, Simon, who is called Peter. We have Andrew, his brother, James, the son, John, his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector dude, James, Thaddeus, and Judas. That's 12.
Plus Mary Magdalene, 13.
Plus Mary. So what's going to happen? And also, what's the deal with the Last Supper? Are we going to have to, go in and Photoshop? And I'm being serious here. The Catholic Church hasn't had any issues with rewriting the Bible. Changing the Ten Commandments and whatever. Sundays and Saturdays and days of worship have all been twisted around over the years. Are we going to go back and start to rewrite and make additions to the Bible? And what about the Gospel of Mary?
Right, exactly. I mean, I guess those are all open and fair game questions. It's because they are the ultimate authority according to themselves, and so they can make any changes or alterations they see fit.
Somebody just tweeted, Idea just tweeted, the open source Bible, the new edition, the open source, like Wikipedia, right? You just go in and add and subtract. All right, let's take a break, and then I want to go and talk about some of the other different versions of Mary that I've been researching and yourself over the years. And certainly, I think Lincoln and Holy Blood, Holy Grail really, really opened up the eyes for everybody to go back and take a second look at all of this. And I want to talk about that after the break. I find all of that so interesting and how it isn't necessarily heresy now to discuss Mary in these other versions of a possible life. And this is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, William Henry. I'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store. Would you like freedom from health insurance? You're not alone. Whether you're self-employed, a small business owner, or an individual who purchases health care for yourself and your family, Liberty Health Share could be the answer. Liberty Health Share has united a community of like-minded people that actually share health care costs. And Liberty Health Share members are exempt from IRS penalties associated with the Affordable Care Act. Imagine freedom from insurance. You choose your own doctor and hospital. Your medical provider simply submits your bills to Liberty Health Share for processing. Why wait? You do have choices. Together we're changing healthcare for good. Find out more and get a free monthly estimate right now. For a limited time, use promo code TALK to save $50 when you enroll. Go to libertyhealthshare.com/options. That's libertyhealthshare.com/options.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood, not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high-quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, William Henry. Want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Nick Redfern is going to be here. Women in Black. And then Thursday night, Peter Joseph and John Rappaport right here for a very, very special Fader night. Now, William, let's dive into a few other areas here that deserve discussion. Mary, boats, south of France, pregnant.
Right. Yeah, awesome story.
That's it?
Well, I mean, gosh, where can we go with that? I mean, for centuries in southern France, there's the belief that Mary Magdalene came there, bringing perhaps the Holy Grail with her, which in this scenario would be the bloodline or the offspring of Jesus and Mary, becomes the basis, of course, for Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And in France, when I've been to France many times, probably 12, 15 times, and love going to these areas and following the Magdalene Trail, and the people there absolutely emphatically believe that she lived there, and she probably even died there as well.
And there's a lot of churches, right? A lot of churches in that part of France that have a very, very long tradition based on this.
Yes, and there's the ones that intrigue me as well are the ones that are located near the caves where they maintain Mary Magdalene spent her last days, where she would be taken into the heavens many times a day by angels who would feed her the celestial bread, and she would hear the sounds of the cosmos. This is Ascension symbolism that we're talking about here, and,
right.
and goes along with this idea that she was schooled in the teachings of Ascension at Magdala, where she was born and raised, and it's just utterly fascinating.
And then we have the Merovingian aspect.
Right. And that's where it starts to get kind of, if you will, dodgy. I mean, even Henry Lincoln backed off that. I first met Henry Lincoln, must have been probably 2003. It was before the Da Vinci Code hit. And he was very kind of open still then as a researcher. And then after the Da Vinci Code hit in, I think it was 2005, I didn't see him for a few years until maybe 2009, 2010, and he was very embittered after the Da Vinci Code came out. I think he somehow felt like maybe his role in the promotion of these mysteries had been somehow diminished, or maybe he was just angry that he wasn't getting enough credit. I don't know, but he really changed, and he actually, the last time I saw him must have been 2013. He gave a presentation to our group that was there, and he refused to sign his book Holy Blood, Holy Grail. He said this is all rubbish. He wouldn't tell us what was the real problem with the book, but he had clearly taken huge steps back from a lot of the ideas that were in his book. And later it seemed like it wasn't so much about the Magdalene connection as much as some of the beliefs about Rennes-le-Château and some of the things that were happening in southern France that he was just really, really bitter about.
Well, when the Da Vinci Code came out, and I like everybody else, and Rita, were reading it, and we got sucked up into that maelstrom like everybody did.
Yeah.
And it was a fun ride for sure. I read all of the Da Vinci Code decoded books, that came out after too as well. But I had been into Rennes-le-Château for a while. Holy Blood, Holy Grail is a book that I've read many, many times. Mm-hmm. I have an old copy of it somewhere over at the house. But when I read Da Vinci Code, I'm like, wait a minute. I've read all of this before. I started to put it all together from all of the research I had done over the years. It seemed like it was plagiarism. And for Lincoln, I think, you make a good point that he didn't get the credit that he was due. And I think that Dan Brown should have been very honest about that out of the gate. I mean, that there's that part. But the part about Lincoln backing off of the book, I'm kind of taken aback about that, and I don't know what to say. And you said that he wasn't specific. Was it about Rennes-le-Château, or what part of it, or is it the Knights Templar or the Holy Grail version?
My sense is that it has mostly to do with Rennes-le-Château and the way that people ran away with the Rennes-le-Château mystery, and that Lincoln, I think, kind of felt like or feels like he has been kind of maybe sort of kicked to the curb in a way. That's just my sense from being around him. And regarding the plagiarism issue, the reason why they lost that lawsuit was because many of the claims that Dan Brown was making in the Da Vinci Code about the Magdalene bloodline story had been known for centuries. It was common knowledge in France that was the case, that is actual history. And you have not only the French monarchy believing this, but you also have the English monarchy believing it as well. Henry Tudor, Henry VIII, did everything he could do to connect himself to the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And even to this day, when the monarchs of Great Britain are coronated at Westminster Abbey, they are becoming the incarnate version of Christ on earth because they believe they are ultimately the descendants of the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene.
And then you have the Sinclairs too, and that goes back 400 years.
Exactly. So this is something that these families have been believing literally for centuries, and in my opinion, there must be something to it. I mean, even we mentioned Lawrence Gardner. That's how he came to write his best-selling book, Bloodline of the Holy Grail. Lawrence used to be in the art restoration business, and he would be restoring these old master paintings and these beautiful English manor homes. And inevitably, he said, after taking care of their paintings, they'd start to pull out these books, and turns out they were genealogy showing these family bloodlines, and they were all ultimately going to the same place, back to Jesus and Mary Magdalene. So either these people or many of these families are deluded, or there's some real truth to this idea. And I personally think that where there's smoke, there's fire.
What you've been to Rennes-le-Château?
Many times, yeah, over a dozen times.
And I have not. That's a bucket list situation, but I'm definitely going to knock that out very, very soon. Your first visit there, what did you think?
I was blown away. It was 1996, and I never thought I'd be able to get there. And all of a sudden, an opportunity came for me to go. It was pure magic. And actually, when I first started going there, they had probably around 10,000 visitors a year. In fact, I had an opportunity to buy the whole domain up on the hilltop there at Rennes-le-Château. Saulnier's house, the garden, the Tour Magdala, it all was for sale for $100,000.
Shut up.
Yeah. And I stayed in Saulnier's house and actually had a visitation by a blue-eyed ghost. It was really crazy.
Okay, hold. Pump the brakes there, William. Pump the brakes. We're going to talk about that. But you don't get off that easy. Let me back up a second. You just said you had an opportunity. Why didn't you buy it?
Well, one, I didn't have the money, and two, it just wasn't that easy for an American to do that, and I didn't know what I would do with it. I mean, who knew in 1996 that Rennes-le-Château was about to experience this absolute explosion where suddenly millions of people would be converging on this hilltop and seeking the treasure of Bérenger Saulnier and Rennes-le-Château, and that the Da Vinci Code would hit, and it would turn it into a kind of this Disneyland of the holy bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I mean, it was absolutely wild. In fact, I stopped going for a few years during the period when the Da Vinci Code was at its apex because it just was not the same place. I mean, you're talking about a very sleepy little village, and that's extraordinarily beautiful. I mean, it's very primitive. It's gorgeous country, and that's one of the favorite things that I like to tell people is the real treasure of Rennes-le-Château is the view from the top of the hill there when you're looking out over the Valley of Colors and the Pyrenees off in the distance. It's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, and frozen in time too, as well.
Absolutely frozen in time, and now it's quieted down quite a bit. It's returning kind of to its pre-Da Vinci Code sleepiness, if you will. But the whole area is like an onion. I mean, you peel away one layer, and then there's a whole nother layer you didn't even know was there. Once you get past that layer, there's yet a whole other layer, and that's what really keeps us going back time and time again.
Do you think that Saulnier found something?
Absolutely. I'm convinced that he did. What exactly he found, I can't say for sure. But the potential is there for some really extraordinary discoveries. And personally, I'm still hooked on the gateway idea that there in fact are portals that are there to be discovered in that area. I mean, the history of the area around Rennes-le-Château goes back almost 500,000 years. You have your dinosaur museum just down the street from the turnoff up to Rennes-le-Château. So you've got this tremendous layer cake going on there. And I've operated since 1998 on the premise that this is the Valley of Eshcol where the Anunnaki lived, where Joshua and Caleb stole these giant grapes from the sons of Anak, or the Anunnaki, at this place called Eshcol, and they came back to Moses and they told him, we're not going anywhere near this place because the giants lived there, the Anunnaki lived there, and the place is well fortified, and this land eats the people up. That's what the Bible says. The book of Numbers says this.
Now, no, go ahead.
And I was just going to say that the way I interpreted that is we're told this is the promised land, so how can this land consume the people? I mean, the traditional Bible interpretation is that the land consumed the people because it didn't provide for them, but this is the promised land. So what I started to begin to think was that Joshua and Caleb had seen people walking along the surface of the earth, and they suddenly vanished because they they went through some kind of a portal, and this giant cluster of grapes that they stole from the Anunnaki symbolized their ability to enter into the other dimensional world of the Anunnaki and return. And the thing is that throughout France and even in Switzerland, I've been in churches in Switzerland where you will see images of the crucifixion with Joshua and Caleb bringing those giant grapes to the cross of crucifixion. And art historians will tell you that what they're trying to tell you is that those two events are happening simultaneously. They're connected. So what do the grapes of the Anunnaki have to do with the crucifixion of Jesus? To me, the answer is going to be found at Rennes-le-Château, because that's where the portal of the Anunnaki is located.
The story, the myth behind Saunier is that he got the property, but he was broke, right? He was, he's penniless, and then bumped into this wealth overnight.
Exactly.
And built Rennes-le-Château. Now, you've been there. Does it look like wealth? Does it look like money? Or does it look more hodgepodge, that he just built something big, but there isn't money behind it? I mean, what's the real truth there? Does Rennes-le-Château look like money? Does it look like wealth?
Well, it does compared to everything else that you see in the area, because it's very rural. I mean, to get there, you drive through field after field of sunflowers. Then you're driving through all these vineyards, and it's very primitive country. It's not like northern France where there's obvious wealth. And so when you're talking about wealth relative to the other people there, yes, he had tremendous wealth, and he used a lot of money to leave a message for posterity in the church, and the way he refurbished everything that he did. His domain, his house, the gardens, the Tour Magdala, the church, all are ultimately a code book left by Bérenger Saunier to lead one to this ultimate treasure.
When you walk around Rennes-le-Château, I haven't been there, so I want to do this vicariously through you, okay, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When you walk around, the symbolism, I've been studying Rennes-le-Château for 30 years. Back when, like you had just said, back before, the sensationalism came out, and I was fascinated with it. And so I have seen all the references to the symbolism, but you have been there. Does it just reek of that? Do you just look around and go, dude, there are messages here?
Without a doubt. I mean, anytime I smell wood smoke, I'm back in Rennes-le-Château, for one thing, because that's one of the big memories I have there, is just this delicious smell of wood smoke in the air. And I remember the first time I left there, I felt like I knew less upon leaving than when I arrived, because it just suddenly grew in such immensity and proportion. It's kind of like seeing the Great Pyramid for the first time. You just cannot even, believe that you're there,
right,
and seeing what you're seeing. And I always tell people, if you're going to plan to go to Egypt, you plan to go twice, because when you're there the first time, you're just going to be too blown away to really even be able to have that amazing of an experience, because your brain is just on overwhelm almost the whole time. Whereas when you go back the second time, you kind of know your way around. And so that was my experience at Rennes-le-Château. When I went back the second time, I knew where everything was. I didn't have to find my bearings and all of that. And I've spent days literally walking around the grounds there and out in the countryside, following up clues. And it's so magical, because you just have the sense that any minute now, something really incredible is going to happen, or is going to be revealed, or you're going to learn something truly special. And that's one of the things I love about the area.
Who owns it now? Does the city own it?
That's a good question. It's changed hands.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman, Jean-Luc Robin, that owned it for a while, and then he was going to take over control and become the mayor, and he died under very suspicious circumstances. And now I don't actually know. They've turned the house into a museum, and my sense is that it's got to be owned by the village or by some local government.
Yeah, that's what my memory says. My memory says it's now city-owned or town-owned. Now, what about, I want to talk about this blue-eyed ghost, but what about his gravestone? That still intrigues me. I can't make it out. Have you tried to decode that? Not the Dan Brown version, but your version.
No, I never really got into all of that. They did move his grave, though, which is kind of appalling. It used to be in the cemetery behind the church, and now they moved it out more front and center, kind of like Disney style.
Right.
Which is a shame.
Right.
But there's so many layers to that mystery that you kind of have to pick your battles, so to speak. And so no, I never really got into the intricacies of the gravestones. I was always more interested in that in the parchment.
Yeah. Okay, I was going right there. Okay, thank you.
Blue Apple's parchment.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. And so let's talk about that for a second. And also the stories that have built up. I don't know if it's urban legend or how much is based on fact, but the altar and the hidden parchments and that stuff being discovered. How much of that is fact?
I think a lot of that's fact. I think, there's no question there were parchments that were discovered, and then later there's funny business that's put on top of it. So you have a layer of fact, and then somebody comes in, Gerard de Sade, for example, comes in and puts a layer of fiction on top of it. So you can either say, okay, well, I'm just going to dismiss all this, or kind of the perspective I took is that, okay, it is as it is, and so let's just go with that and say, okay, maybe this is synchronicity, and this is the way it's meant to be perceived and interpreted.
And then you have the part about Saunier going to Paris. And did his decoding message, or decoding sessions, I should say.
Yeah, it's Saint Sulpice and so forth. And again, people argue about every little detail about that, and some people dismiss it entirely, and other people still go with it. So it gets to be to a place where you just kind of have to again decide. This is what I can live with. This is what I can't live with it.
And then that he went to Paris and he was given money. He didn't discover anything necessarily a treasure at the chateau, but that he was paid in Paris because he now had secret information from these parchments.
Right. Yeah, maybe concerning the bloodline or what have you, or location of a treasure. And we do know for sure that the area around Rennes-le-Château was a treasure vault. There was a lot of activity there for centuries. And so there's, again, many layers and many possibilities about what he could have discovered there. I'll just tell you briefly where I went with it, if you like.
Yes, please.
So, as I say, I got hooked on the blue, what I call the Blue Apples parchment. This is a translation of one of the messages found in the parchment. It's supposed to have been deciphered by Gerard de Sade, who some people believe is just flat out a con artist, and that none of this really matters because he just made it all up. But here's what happened in my case is that this parchment reveals this message which said, "Shepherdess, no temptation to which Poussin and 10 years keep the key piece 681 with the cross and this horse of God. I complete or destroy this demon guardian at midday, blue apples." It sounds like gibberish, right? And so you automatically just say, well, what in the world are we talking about? And then when you get into it, you realize that Poussin and 10 years are painters, and that they are believed to have encoded secrets about the landscape around Rennes-le-Château that reveal the location of maybe the tomb of Jesus, maybe some kind of treasure from Solomon's temple, all these are perspectives that people have written about. And the demon guardian that's referred to, that's the demon guarding the entranceway to the church of Rennes-le-Château. And people made a big deal about, wow, what's this demon doing at the entranceway to this church? And how come above the entrance to the church, Saunier makes the reference to Jacob's ladder and that this is the gate to God and so forth. And so there's all these clues that are there. And then what is the meaning of these last lines at midday, blue apples? What are the blue apples?
Right. And
nobody knows for sure. So everybody gets to look in this mirror and try to come up with their own. And what happened in my case is that I zeroed in on the key piece 681. And I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. That's 681. That's a sacred number. That's the number of the goddess. That's the phi ratio it refers to, and so forth. And then I just decided one night to add those numbers together. I left 6 alone, added 8 and 1, and I got 9. So what if the key piece is 69? So I'm working with the number 69, which has got all kinds of associations, right? Well, I went to the periodic table of elements, and just one more piece before I talk about that. I was convinced, I had learned along the way that the Knights Templar grew marijuana in Rennes-le-Château. And what they did is they were using it to suck something out of the soil in the ground there. They used the grapes for the same purpose. And they were sucking this element out of the ground, and then they would make an oil out of the cannabis and stick it in their ear where the blood vessels were closest to the skin. And so I'm thinking, golly, wonder what that substance is in the ground that they're trying to suck out of the soil to introduce into their bloodstream, and what do they hope to accomplish by getting this element in their bloodstream? Well, it's obvious that it has to do with something about purifying the blood, transforming the blood, and perhaps even enlightening the blood. That maybe this was the key piece that the Templars knew was in the soil around Rennes-le-Château, and that this is why they would drink the wine and put this oil in their ear so they could introduce this substance into their bloodstream.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm following this path, and so this is where I'm thinking, okay, what if the key piece 681 has something to do with that key element that is in the ground there? So I go to the periodic table of elements, and I look up element number 69. It's called thulium.
Oh, really?
And lo and behold, I find a cancer research, Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center near Seattle. This is where Dr. Carl Sagan was treated. They were using thulium to treat leukemia and other blood-borne diseases. And I'm thinking, wow. Maybe that's what was in the soil there that they were sucking up and introducing into their bloodstream. I don't have any. I've never found thulium in the ground there. To go there and try to find sources of thulium in the ground near Rennes-le-Château is a mighty big endeavor. It would take a lot of resources to do that. But I'm just citing this as an example of where this supposedly fraudulent or con artist interpretation of this parchment ultimately led me was to actual valid science that says, hey, the key piece 681 could be element number 69, thulium, and if you can introduce this into your bloodstream, it can cure blood-borne diseases.
Let's take a quick break. I'm going to get you to hang on for about 10 minutes of overtime because you've got to tell us about the blue-eyed ghost. And, also, William, the blue apples. We got to talk about that after the break because I've studied that over the years too, and there's been a lot of different theories about the blue apples. Of course, we know that apples are red. Why would he reference blue apples? We'll talk to William Henry about all of that and the blue-eyed ghost right after this. This is Fade to Black.
here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized wave ventilation unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave ventilation requires no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance wave ventilation unit. Call 888-618-WAVE, 888-618-WAVE, or visit mydryhome.com. mydryhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm hanging out in the chat rooms, and what a show tonight. Our guest, William Henry. Now, William, thank you for just doing a little overtime tonight. We just can't leave everybody hanging, my friend. But, you know, and it's kind of, I think it's great that the conversation does what it does, and you and I, you know, will always do that. But to end up on René Le Chateau, that is a subject that I have studied forever. And I know it's a magic place, and I've just got to get there one day. I have to.
Yeah, you do.
So now, where did we leave off? Well, the blue-eyed ghost, and but there was one other thing.
The blue apples.
Yeah, the blue apples. Blue apples. Now,
yeah,
could it have been not necessarily blue apples, but something that looked like blue apples?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the perspectives, is that the blue apples are actually grapes.
Grapes.
Les Palm Bleu.
Right.
They're grapes. So there's something you're being called, your attention is being called to the grapes, and this is in part what led me down this path to think that these are the grapes of the promised land that Joshua and Caleb stole from the Anunnaki. It has something to do with that. But then also, the thing is that blue apples don't exist. Right?
Right.
There's no such thing as a blue apple until you imagine it.
Oh, okay.
And then if you say, I'm going to create a blue apple, that's alchemy. That's alchemy. I'm going to create something that doesn't exist. I'm going to create something out of nothing. And I'll tell you a funny story. when I wrote my book Blue Apples back in 1998, I knew that Steve Jobs and Apple Computer were in a tug of war with Paul McCartney over the image of the Apple. Paul McCartney said, I own the Apple as a symbol.
Right. Apple Records. Right.
For Apple Records. For anything that plays music, I own it. And so what happened is that, long story short, Apple Computer paid Paul McCartney hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to use their Apple logo and put it on the iPod as a device that played music. And so I knew that they were having this tug of war going on, and that because the Apple Computer could play music, Paul McCartney got all upset and was suing Apple for control of that symbol. And so I wrote to Steve Jobs and said, "Dear Mr. Jobs, I'm writing a book called Blue Apples. I know how touchy you guys are about the symbol of the apple, and I'm wanting to use a blue apple on my book, and I just want to make sure I'm covered here, and you guys aren't going to sue me." And I get a letter back from Apple's legal department saying, don't worry about it. You're using a blue apple. Apple's logo is a rainbow-colored apple. There's no problem here. Well, about a year later, I got a new MacBook computer, and I was having problems setting it up. So I called Apple customer service, and the guy on the other end of the phone says, "Go up to the left-hand corner of your screen and click on the blue apple." It's like, the blue apple does exist. It's the logo for Apple Computer. And even if you go to Cupertino, California, to Apple's headquarters, they have the blue apple out front as their logo for a very long time.
Isn't that interesting? Well, I had always, when I've tried to put the puzzle together, I haven't been there, but, trying to figure it out, that comment about midday, right?
Yeah. Nude.
Yep. And the blue apple, that the sun was connected to it somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe it was reflecting through a keyhole at the front of the chapel. I don't know. And
It did. I mean, it shone through the stained glass window there on January 17th, and you would see these blue spheres. Now we're back to blue spheres again.
Right.
Projected on the opposite wall. So there's definitely some kind of a consciousness thing that's going on here. And I don't think we've still got to the bottom of this mystery yet.
Yeah. Well, has anybody gone and chopped through the wall?
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, people have been digging around there, and
right.
I mean, it's just unreal. It's unreal.
The blue apples thing, I think, is such key to this mystery, and it's just the one thing that hasn't been. Well, a lot of it hasn't been, but that blue apples thing is key. I mean, it's so deliberate,
Totally.
So,
and I think it has to do with the grapes, but I also, as I said, think it has to do with recognizing that what we can imagine, if we believe it, we can live it, we can create it. And so it's about alchemy. It's like the blue rose doesn't exist, the blue apple doesn't exist, but it does in your imagination. And what you can create in your imagination, you can manifest in the material world.
Now, I'm going to say this to the audience really quick. William is a very tall, in shape, good-looking guy, intellectual. You look at him, he's well-dressed, prim and proper, and he's full of knowledge. And then that guy that I just described to you is going to tell you about the blue-eyed ghost that he saw at Le Chateau. And I've met you. I've hung out with you. So I know where this is coming from. The audience needs to understand that I can't wait for this. Just what happened?
So this was the first time I went to Le Chateau, and it was 1996, and we were staying at Saulnier's house, his mansion, his domain, as they call it. And a lot of his personal effects were still there, and I slept in his bedroom. And I'm asleep there that night. It's so quiet up there. It was somewhat eerie. And if I'm painting the image like this was some kind of haunted house, well, it's ground zero for this most incredible mystery, and it's like the place you want to be in. And middle of the night, I'm awakened, and there is this blue-eyed, kind of demon-like figure in my dream state, waking dream state, staring down right at me and scared the living you-know-what out of me.
Were you alone?
Yes, I was alone.
Okay. So what happens?
So I get up and kind of absolutely terrified, and that was it. The thing, whatever it was, just disappeared.
No sleep paralysis, nothing like that?
No, nothing like that, but I'll never forget these piercing, we're talking like neon kind of blue eyes.
Full size?
Full size, yeah.
And you said that you got out of bed. It was still there when you got out of bed?
Yes, and then it's gone.
Okay, that's really creepy.
Very, very.
Oh man, did it look? That's awesome. Did it look solid?
Yes, it did look solid, and it was all in black except for these just, again, electric neon blue eyes piercing through me.
Do you think it was Saunier?
I don't think it was Saunier. No, it seemed like it was much more ancient than that to me.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Wow.
Like it had been there for a very, very long time.
Any noise?
No noise.
No spoken word?
No. Not, yeah, I almost would have expected something like that, but no, it was nothing. I think it was just kind of checking me out.
Wow. And now, what was your reaction afterwards? Adrenaline pumping? Were you scared?
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it was so completely unexpected and freaky.
Did you say anything?
No, I don't remember saying anything.
Did anything personal happen after that?
No.
No personal reflections?
No.
It just happened.
Just happened, and I'll never forget it.
Now, did you sleep in the room the next night?
I did.
And?
I did. With one eye open kind of thing, wondering if that was going to happen again.
Now, you're a religious guy.
Mm-hmm.
And something like that happens. Are you thinking, well, I mean, what did you think you saw?
I thought I saw a demon.
That's where I was going.
I thought I saw a demon, like the demon guardian in the church, who is actually Asmodeus. He's the guardian of Solomon's treasure.
Right. Have you ever had an experience like that before or since?
No. I had an experience in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, again with blue eyes, but not a demon type of an eye.
I'm curious because, you are religious. And when you say demon, you made that connection. So there was something demon about it, not just the blue eyes. What makes you jump there as opposed to ghosts or interdimensional something?
Just the blackness, the darkness of the figure.
Wow. That's very interesting. And when you have the opportunity to call this being back, would you do it? I mean, you know what I mean? You're in the room the next night or a year later. Okay, whoever that was.
I definitely didn't do it the next night. But from where I sit now, yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay. And would you share it with me if it happens?
Sure, of course, yeah.
Hey, William, what's up next for you? What are you doing?
Well, I'm home for the summer. I'm finishing up my book on the Essenes, which I can't wait to share with everybody, and then lots of travel coming up in the fall.
Okay, there you go. WilliamHenry.net. William, thank you so much. Wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, everybody, for listening.
You're the best. Thank you so much, William.
Okay, thank you.
WilliamHenry.net is where you want to go. WilliamHenry.net, and his article on Mary Magdalene is there, and it's called The Ascension of Mary Magdalene. And there's a lot of information and data in that article that will allow you to go out and get some research done. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll finish up with the news that you know nothing about. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, William Henry, WilliamHenry.net. This is Fade to Black, the spoke radio for the masses. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
FoodForLiberty.com sells high-quality storable foods from Numana. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or an outdoor sports enthusiast, FoodForLiberty.com has your prepackaged single-serve packs or kits for the entire family. Numana is known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, super nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. With a 25-year shelf life, you can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. Right now, FoodForLiberty.com is offering a special gift, a heavy-duty Survivor dry storage box designed for extreme bug-out conditions. This storage box is built to last, includes compass, signaling mirror, and is yours free with a $50 order. Go to foodforliberty.com right now and pick up your quality storable foods from Numana. To get the Survivor dry storage box, use promo code LIBERTY. It makes good sense to be prepared. Go to foodforliberty.com.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's all here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. William Henry. WilliamHenry.net. Few thoughts really quick. Obviously, Mary Magdalene and alchemy. That's an interesting twist on this whole story. And Chrism is an interesting twist on everything. And having the resurrection being pulled away from something that was religious, from the heavens, and actually something that was man-made, an oil that did the transformation. That is a very interesting theory. And William presents it very, very well. And Chrism is something that we're going to be talking about for a while. And Christianity came from Chrism, not necessarily from baptism, right? If you think about it, that's very interesting. William, thank you so much. That was a great conversation. Mary Magdalene is just that one figure today that we're starting to discover. And I keep using the word dogma, but the dogma that has surrounded her for so long. And today it looks like the Vatican has taken an about face and now calling this press release that they did, this charter, the Apostle of Apostles. Now, 12, or is the new number shall be 13. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you so much, William, for that conversation. Now, really quick, back to the news that you know nothing about. Some of the nation's largest banks acknowledging that traditional passwords are either too cumbersome or no longer secure are increasingly using fingerprints, facial scans, and other types of biometrics to safeguard accounts. I'm going to say this right now. A lot of people today, including yours truly, we bank by cell phone. You know, you still may go to the bank to cash the occasional check, but you can photograph that now and cash checks. You know, everything is done via cell phone. And with the introduction of thumbprints and those biometrics on cell phones right now, banks are now using that for a password. And I've often thought, you know, that 4-digit PIN code just didn't ever sit right with me. It's just too simple, right? Well, millions of customers right now, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo are now using fingerprints to log into their bank accounts through their mobile phones. This feature, which some of the largest banks have now introduced in the last few months, is enabling a huge swath of the American banking public to verify their identity with biometrics. The future is here, and millions of additional customers are expected to opt in as more phones incorporate fingerprint scans. Get ready for that. Your eyeballs. Yeah, think about it. You're going to go up to an ATM very soon. I think this is right around the corner. You're going to look into a camera, facial recognition, your eyes, or a simple thumbprint is what's going to tie you to your bank account. No more remembering a password that somebody else could steal or use, but they can't steal your eyes or your thumbprint. They'll figure out a way to get that done. You know, you go up to an ATM now and they have those the criminals that'll put a card scanner right next to it and you don't even notice it, and it reads your card. Going up to it, think about that, right? And then you go up and you use your thumbprint, and it's not the actual ATM, it's some device that is glued onto the top of it, and somebody steals your thumbprint. But anyway, they'll figure out a way around that eventually. Check this out. Philadelphia has become the second city in the United States to approve a soda tax. In a final vote of 13-4, the Philadelphia City Council last week passed a 1.5 cent per ounce tax on sugar-added and artificially sweetened soft drinks. So I guess that includes Mexican Coke. That would add 18 cents to the cost of a can of soda. That's a $1.08 tax for a 6-pack, or $1.02 for a 2-liter bottle. Tax. No joke. The new soda tax would be on top of the 8% sales tax that already applies to soda in Pennsylvania. Soda is classified as food, which is tax exempt in some states, but no longer in Pennsylvania. Can you imagine a $1.02 tax on a 2-liter bottle? I see a revolt in the future. Well, okay, I talked about this last night with Mike Barra, the timing of the cold-blooded murder of the British lawmaker Jo Cox as she was leaving a meeting with constituents. And it has led to a flurry, it's all over the place, of social media chatter claiming that it was plotted by forces seeking to sway this week's referendum in favor of Britain remaining in the European Union. Cox was stabbed, she was shot, and all of this allegedly by this right-wing loner. The spreading of the conspiracy theory is that the suspect, his name is Thomas Mayer, 52, is a patsy of pro-EU forces, and that Cox's murder is another false flag aimed at portraying the British right as unhinged and dangerous. One of thousands of tweets read, and I'm quoting here, this is what I pulled up, "It's obvious that Jo Cox was killed as a false flag. Perfect excuse to suspend the campaign. Globalists will kill anyone to achieve their goals," end quote. That was a tweet, actual tweet. Meanwhile, U.S. stocks rallied today, tracking gains in European stocks as polls over the weekend showed an increased possibility of Britain now remaining in the European Union. The day's gains erased most of last week's decline, which came partly on worries of that the British would exit from the EU and what it would mean for the global economy and trade. The vote on whether to stay or go is scheduled for Thursday. Most recent polls now today showed a change in momentum favoring the Remain camp. Just 2 days away from the vote. We shall see. I don't want to see. I don't want to see the EU flipped over right now. I think we need stability in the world. That's just my opinion. But I'm not British, and they will do what they think is right for Britain. Talked about this yesterday. I didn't get this in, but Mark Zuckerberg would like you to know that he is not a shape-shifting lizard person. The billionaire chief executive of Facebook hosted his first Q&A town hall using the social network's live video streaming program to field questions from users. Well, someone wanted to know whether he was actually a reptilian disguised as a human. And the question was, and Zuckerberg read this aloud, "Mark, are the allegations true that you're secretly a lizard?" And he responded saying, I'm going to have to go with no on that. And then he licked his lips as he says, "I am not a lizard." This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, William Henry. What a conversation tonight, and I can't wait to get you back on. You are the absolute very best. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar. Thank you, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale. Webmaster, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA, The Planet. Thank you, William Henry. Tomorrow night, Nick Redfern. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.